All right, good morning and welcome back to MorningLine. We were talking about civics, the importance of civics education in school, and how to bring back really, how do you don't fight when it comes to political discussions.
Okay.
With me is author Holly Korbey, who has written this great book, great resource, Building Better Citizens. So make sure to look that up when you get a chance. I want to get back to the lines. We have Ed calling us. Hey, Ed, thanks for calling. What is your question or comment?
Good morning. No, bringing back civility to politics is a great idea, and I hope it happens. But let's take a look at the history real quick of politics in this country. One of the worst presidents that ever got condemned was John Quincy Adams. And guess who was leading the pack? Andrew Jackson. And the reason for this was when Henry Clay was made Secretary of State, he was number 3 on the list of when they had the Electoral College. So he threw his support behind. And Jackson had also got not only the most electoral votes, but also the most votes. But he didn't get enough, so went into the House of Representatives, and John Quincy Adams came out as the president. And then when Jackson found out about it, that poor president didn't stand a moment of peace. It reminds me of today what the newspapers are going after our current president. And so in those days, what they would do, they would, if they wanted to get somebody, they just start a newspaper. Because that's basically the way the folks got their news in those days, was through newspapers. And so, and now it's got so bad, it's almost like Hamilton deal where he got killed over politics. Aaron Burr killed him. They got killed over politics. They disagreed. You want to fight. You're a stupid idiot if you don't agree with what I have to say. That's not right. It's not. So people are going to have to change their minds. Most of them, their minds are made up, and they ain't going to change, and they don't care if you like it or not. And that's not right. If you would go to you got to be civil when you talk to folks, and I try to be reasonable, but sometimes all you can do is walk away.
Hey, Ed, I want to ask you a question. In school, how was civic engagement in school when you were growing up?
I went into school from the middle 40s to the end of the 50s, and it was pretty civil in those days. Of course, we had fist fights on the playground, but a lot of that was over something else. We didn't pay that much attention to politics until it was election year, and then the parents would, would start saying a few things. But most of us kids, we stayed out of it. Now, even our elections in school, so I went to Central High School there in Nashville, and they had a firm constitution, one of the first in the nation. And it was civil. I didn't hear a bad word about somebody else because, you just didn't do it.
Yeah.
And now, boy, it's the kids. What's happened? Some of these people have now knowing they're going to get away with it, can call you anything they want to.
Yeah. We're pulling our hairs out back here because of this. So,
yeah.
Ed, thanks for calling. I appreciate it.
He brings up a really great point that Eric Liu, who is the civics guru, who's written all these books about civics, actually says that, Americans have always argued about politics, and that's because America is an argument. What makes America so unique is the push and pull between individual rights and civil liberties, between conservatism and liberalism, that's actually what makes us vibrant and healthy. What we need to do, Eric Liu says, is argue better. So what we can't have are crummy arguments that are based on our emotions, that are based on news that isn't true, that when we come up with our own facts. So actually, that's a really good point, that politics has always been divisive. What we want to do is be sure that we don't end up hating each other in the process.
And I like what he brought up. It seems like there was always a level of respect.
Exactly.
With what?
For the person, yes.
For the person. person, whatever it might be, if that means not necessarily talking about it back in the 40s or 50s in school, but that was really it. But of course, nowadays you have social media. People are, that is the culture. You are open, you express yourself, and from the president down.
Right, and sometimes, you know, that those comments are made in a rush of emotion, you know, that you can type it out really quickly and hit send, where I think when you're face to face with someone,
you are forced to listen, hopefully, and then engage. But like he said, it's just, you just have to make the effort to, I think, not just listen, but to understand and say, I hear you and I take you for what you are believing in. Absolutely.
The two women who wrote that book, The Political Classroom, Diana Hess and Paula McAvoy, they're really smart women, and they said, you know, that the premise behind democracy is to be asking ourselves the question, how are we going to live together? And I love that. I think about that, you know, when I watch every political interaction now, is like, how we have to figure out a way. How are we going to live together?
Well, we do have to figure out a way, because we do have the impeachment hearings that are happening, and then you have the 2020 election. Yeah. My mind's like just boggled right now, knowing what's happening next year. Yeah. And for you, just you know, we have a few minutes left, but if you can address those people listening, what should they take away from, again, Building Better Citizens, folks? The book is out already. What should they take away from the book, and just a message that you would like parents and students to really know? Really everyone. Absolutely.
I think that the message is, we're in a civics crisis, and so anything that you can do, it would be appreciated. And so if you are an educator and you teach science, find a way to work civics topics into science class. There's so many topics to cover, right? Between the ethics of mapping the genome, DNA, climate change. There's so many topics that have a civic element. Even clean air and clean water, how we get that, how that's related to our laws. So if you're an educator, to find a way to talk about some of these broad civic topics in your classroom. If you're a parent, model the kind of civic behavior you want your kids to grow up and have, whether that's voting or volunteering. Or even, I wrote a piece about how even volunteering at your local Little League and showing kids how to use good sportsmanship is modeling civic behavior, and that helps those kids grow up and be civically engaged citizens.
Good sportsmanship.
Right.
Gosh, we can just go down the list here with everything. I do like what you said. It doesn't have to be social studies to have the civic conversation. Yeah. So we will wrap things up when we come back after the break. Again, great conversation we have had this past hour. We'll have a brief wraparound after this.